Your Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for well over a decade, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150. If your bet wins, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm the public address voice for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. I've also been covering hockey for over a decade, and it's been a tough go, not just for me, but for the Ducks as well. And we've had a lack of episodes. I'll fully explain why at the end of this podcast. But we're going to get started talking about the last game that took place against the Edmonton Oilers. A game that made me curse a little bit. A game that infuriated me for a plethora of reasons. This was one of the most maddening games that I watched from start to finish. And it just reminded me why I don't like watching these games from start to finish sometimes. This one took me from zero to pissed off really quickly, folks. I mean, really, really quickly. Because the Ducks had the upper hand in this game for most of the time. Like, they should have won this game and didn't. That's how I felt about it. When you see Cam Fowler actually scoring a goal, you think, oh, that's the good omen right there. Surely the Ducks are going to win this game because Cam Fowler has been struggling this season, and I'm being kind. I'm being very kind by saying that Cam Fowler has struggled a little bit this season. It's been a little more than a little bit. What else was really weird was seeing Corey Perry in an Oilers uniform back at the pond. Even weirder, seeing him on a line with someone that plenty of, not just Ducks fans, but SoCal fans in general, they hate Evander Kane. I mean, the Ducks just got a big reason to hate him from the last game. The Kings have plenty of reasons to hate Evander Kane. So it's pretty much all of SoCal hates that guy. They really do. And that game, the Ducks actually came out with all the firepower. They had all the energy. They had all the momentum. Even though Cal Pickard made some great saves, like he had a couple of really good robberies on Ryan Strome. He had the robbery on Jakob Silfverberg. It could have easily been the Ducks ahead at that point of the game. I mean, yeah, Cam Fowler got the nice goal. There was a ton of traffic. That part was cool. And that was towards the end of the period too. So it's looking pretty solid for the Ducks so far. Like, they were leading in shots, 13-9. They looked good. Evander Kane scored in the second period. Ryan Strome put the Ducks up ahead after that. After that goal, it was all Oilers the rest of the period. The Ducks didn't register a single shot after that Strome goal. And Edmonton just took over pretty much for the rest of the period from there. Evander Kane got another one. Okay, fine. So it's 2-2 after two periods. I'm yelling. I'm freaking pissed off. I think what pissed me off even more was Corey Perry doing Corey Perry things, but on the other side. Yeah, Ducks fans were used to seeing Corey Perry pull off these kind of, wormy moves. And how about the self-awareness, if you want to call it that, from the official Ducks Twitter account saying, we remember when Corey Perry used to get away with crap like this. Not in those words, but I'm saying it. He got away with a lot of crap. It was kind of fun. Not so fun when he's on a team against the Ducks. That's what it feels like. It's not fun. So it's 2-2 after two. And then in between periods 2 and 3, we find out that John Gibson got injured again with a lower body injury. So he's out. In comes Lukasz Dostal in a very tough spot. And he lost the game, unfortunately. He just came in very cold. I don't think he expected to come to this game at all, but he did. Even though Stromer got a power play goal, the Ducks were ahead 3-2 in the third. The Ducks had a lead. The Ducks blew a lead. Again, you notice that they're starting to do the same shenanigans that they did before Coach Greg Cronin. This is reeking of old bad habits under the regime of he who shall not. I'm kidding, of course. We're going back to the Dallas Eakins era, and these same mistakes over and over again. These turnovers in the neutral zone. The Ducks laying back. Once they get a lead, they completely relax. The Ducks forecheck disappearing. The Ducks in the neutral zone. What are they doing? The Ducks making bad passes. The Ducks making turnovers. The Ducks blowing leads. You see where I'm going with this. It's just tiresome to see this again and again and again. And after hosting this show for 5 years, I mean, it's tough. It's tough watching the Ducks go back to do something that they did way too many times. Way too many times. And we've seen it. And part of me knew what was going to happen. We saw the writing on the wall. We knew Edmonton's the better team. They have Connor McDavid. And it wasn't even Connor McDavid who did all the damage. It was Evander Kane who got a hat trick. And there was plenty of Oilers fans at the pond and one Yahoo who threw his hat even before the puck went in the net. It's like he knew exactly what was going to happen because it was an empty net goal. I saw the one Yahoo. I saw the one... I want to say something, but I'm not. But I checked the replay, and I saw that Evander Kane had the empty net, and a few feet before it went in, I could see the fan already tossing the hat. The hat was already in the air before the puck crossed the goal line. Yeah, it was one of those games. Ducks lost 5-3. It sucked. It just sucked. We're going to head to the first intermission right now. Stay locked in. Now a brief word from FanDuel. And you know what? You can really succeed with your first bet on FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. And bet on all your favorites with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please, folks, gamble responsibly and maybe don't bet on the Ducks right now. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here talking about this lousy team again with a plethora of games to go. And they're still way back in the standings. How far back? Well, let me tell you. 31 games left. The Ducks are 20 points back of that final wildcard spot. 20 points back. For anybody that thinks the Ducks have any shot at making the playoffs, let me put it to you mathematically. The Ducks have 38 points right now. 31 games left. That's a possible 62 points. They would have to sweep out to even get to 100 points. The projected points to get into the playoffs right now is about 94. So what you're telling me is the Ducks need to win 28 of their final 31 games to make it to the playoffs. So I will give myself 4 more Ducks losses. 4 more. Before I can say, yeah, you know what? Pull the ripcord. The Ducks are virtually out of it. Not mathematically, but virtually out of it. And even I don't think they're going to even win 10 of their last 31. They're just not. The Ducks have the 3rd worst record in the league. And it's probably going to stick with that. And knowing the Ducks' luck, they're probably going to wind up with the 4th overall draft pick, which is right outside the top 3, which is what they want. They'll wind up with a kind of mid pick because that's what happens with this team. That's what happens. All right. I want to talk about John Gibson really quick because he did leave between periods 2 and 3. He went out with an injury. But good news. Thanks, hat tip to Derek Lee on this one. He was at Ducks practice on Sunday. John Gibson was back on the ice. He left Friday's game with an injury, like I mentioned, and he was back practicing with the Ducks, and he looked fine. I wouldn't say he looked great, but he looked fine. He looked fine. And this was right before the Ducks traveled out to Canada. They traveled out on Monday for a game on Tuesday. That's fine. Alex Killorn's also back practicing. Okay, that's really good news. I don't expect him to be back in the lineup right away. If he comes back in this road trip, it might be late in the road trip, but I kind of doubt it. I mean, he was skating, but he didn't practice. He took part in practice, but very lightly, so at least he's skating with the guys for what it's worth. Better news, Isaac Lundestrom skating on that third line. That's good news. Pavel Mintyukov, he's back skating. He should be back on this road trip. So with up the middle, Carlson, McTavish, Lundestrom, Carrick, the centers, they look fine. It's going to look a whole lot different in about 3 weeks before the trade deadline. It's really going to look different, folks, because on that latter line, you have Ross Johnston, Sam Carrick, Bo Grew, but then in the back of that, you have Brock McGinn, Brett Leeson. Brett Leeson should be starting. Leeson should be on that 4th line, not Ross Johnston. Bo Grew, I don't know, but it should be Leeson on a wing with Sam Carrick. Make it make sense, folks. I mean, maybe put Leeson on an unnatural position, but you know what? Put him out there. He's been better than some of the other guys on the Ducks. Why not? As far as Minty, yeah, I mean, you may as well get him back out there at this point. He's proven to be a huge asset for the Ducks at this point. And he was last seen practicing on a line with Lyubushkin. The defensive pairings on that practice were Lacombe and Fowler, which is fine. Vakanainen and Gudas, okay, whatever. Minty and Lyubushkin, okay, that's fine. You know, that's all fine. Have those guys during the road trip. I hope Mintyukov is back for this next game, but I kind of doubt it. I'd give him another game. But we'll see. So I guess that's sort of good news, is the guys that are injured are coming back, which is good. Seeing McTavish back in the lineup is good. Seeing Max Jones back in the lineup, that's also good. So a lot of those guys are starting to come back to health, which is good. I mean, I think it's too little too late at this point of the season, but for the sake of positivity, as much as I can muster, it is good to see guys coming back from injury, sort of. But with that few games to go, I'll just say, yeah, let the kids play. Sure. We'll go with that. Let the kids play. But if you're going to let the kids play, give them all the heavy minutes. Don't give the heavy minutes to the vets. No, give the kids like 20, 30 minutes. Leave them out there. Why not at this point of the season? Just do it. All right. We're going to head to the second intermission right now. I'm going to talk about something that was kind of a big story in the National Hockey League. We'll get to that on the other side. Now a brief word from Sleeper. And we're well past the halfway point of the season. And regardless of where the Ducks are in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests with players like McDavid, again, or McKinnon, or insert star player here that's not on the Ducks, whether they'll record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, plus minus, etc., etc. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, Correctly predict the outcome of 8 player positions or 8 player stats. That's right, Ducks fans. 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room on the National Hockey League. And this has to do with the incident that took place in Ontario, Canada between Morgan Rielly and Ridley Greig. So let me paint you a picture of what happened in case you were living under a rock, in case you didn't see it. Toronto and Ottawa, they don't like each other. This is the Battle of Ontario. The Ottawa Senators always seem to step up big time for these games against the Maple Leafs. The Ottawa Senators, who are a bottom 5 team in the standings. I know this because they're just ahead of the Ducks in the standings. And I actually cheered a little bit because Ottawa won that game, which meant the Ducks were less likely going to catch a sens. Yay! Yay for Tank Fest. We'll call it that for now. Yay for that. So Ottawa wins. Toronto, at times, seemed like they didn't even try. They just kind of laid down and let Ottawa have it. But not before Ridley Greig, with the Ottawa Senators up by a goal. He had the puck on his stick, empty net. And what does he do? He freaking hits a slapper. A slap shot right into the empty net. And you know what? I effing love that. One team clearly cares more than the other team. I mean, this game meant a hell of a lot more to Ottawa than it apparently did for Toronto. And this was in front of majority Maple Leafs fans, by the way. I mean, you couldn't even tell it was a road game for the Maple Leafs, the way those fans were going. But when he scored that slapper, I said, yeah, that'll show him. And then what happened after that? Rielly, yeah. This was a bad look for Morgan Rielly, who went after Greig and just sucker punched him. I don't know who's more in the right or wrong here, but I will say I'm okay with the slap shot at the empty net. You know, the saying always goes, if you want to prevent that crap, then defend better. If you want to defend that crap, actually win the freaking game. If you don't want that happening to you, play better hockey. And Toronto didn't do that. I mean, this is like the equivalent of, a football player high stepping into the end zone in a blowout. Or this is the equivalent of a player throwing down a windmill at the end of a basketball game. Or insert other, players having fun, players showing personality. And, we're always talking about, NHL players should show more personality. They should really, show up a little bit more, create a buzz, get a viral moment. Well, there's your moment. There it was. And what happened? Morgan Rielly had to be a you-know-what. He had to be a you-know-what. And just sucker punch him. Did not like that. I liked that Morgan Rielly defended his team and at least showed that he cared a little bit, but don't sucker punch him in the back of the head like that. You can go up to him and give him a shove against the glass. You could throw a punch, but make sure he's looking. Or I don't even know about that, but at least give him a little bit of a shove. Maybe at least send him some kind of message. But the way he did it, the sucker punch, that's not the way to go. And I say it's a sucker punch because the first angle it didn't look like a sucker punch, but the second angle, it looked like from the side that he just kind of wound up a little bit, and that's a bad look. So from one angle, it didn't look as bad. From another angle, it looked really bad. So I could see it. I mean, it's a long suspension for Morgan Rielly. We know that because he had an in-person hearing. So he's going to be out for a while. And it sounds like he's going to be out against the Anaheim Ducks. See how it kind of comes back to the Ducks. Yeah, there's a reason I brought that up. Is because the Maple Leafs have a game against the Ducks on Hockey Night in Canada, Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. That's towards the end of the Ducks road trip. I knew I'd come back to the Ducks. The Ducks schedule: at Montreal, at Ottawa, at Toronto, at Buffalo. All in the next few days, all before they catch a red-eye back to Anaheim to take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Speaking of Columbus, I don't want to give this more attention than it deserves, but there was a different podcast that is talking about the Blue Jackets and made a very distasteful joke. So without referencing the podcast, there was a podcast that made a joke about Patrick Laine, and it was a very tasteless suicide joke. Folks, suicide is absolutely no joke, and there is no place for that kind of talk at all. And speaking of passing away, I'm gonna end on a somber note because I can't see any reason to end on a positive note here. I've been dealing with some family stuff, without getting into detail at all. So this will be the podcast for Tuesday. I have family coming in. So, because I'll be with family for the next couple of days, probably very likely not going to have another podcast until later this week. So we'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. But yeah, just wanted to keep you updated and let you know what's going on. All right, that's how we're going to end it. Once again, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. You could reach me online on Twitter at StimpyJD. Show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. You could drop me a line, like a nice line, at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com, and I'll just say this off the record. Suicide is no joke. It's just no joke at all. So if you ever need to reach out and need help, there are suicide hotlines out there. Don't be afraid to reach out. That's all. Once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason JD Hernandez saying please have a great rest of the day. Please remember to be safe out there. And also, please be kind to one another because you never know what someone else is going through. And Ducks fly together.